put a graphic violence warning out here if you're watching this video, because one can't write a story about alien vampires and not have it be a little bit gory. Dr. Blum escorted an alien vampire, a Drock, down the pristine hallway. This Drock was tall, standing well above 6 feet. He wore thick black armor that shined under the light, covering his torso, neck to navel, all the way down his arms, locked at the wrists. Standard armor for Drock soldiers. His skin was pale, at least as pale as the scaly brownish auburn flesh would allow. His skull was smooth and large, and his neck bones stood on his shoulders, protruding from the skin and skull like two thick stins up to the top of his head. The bones swelled and retracted in unison with his breathing. The skin beneath his eyes was a pale red, circling dry yellowish eyeballs with emerald pupils. His fingers were long and thick with sharp nails. Part of the Drock species, he wore his people's badge of honor proud on his sleeve. He's the first to receive the new pills, Dr. Blum explained. He's still coherent though. Seems his strength and adrenaline are fighting off the effects, but at least he's calm. Shock to the system if you know what I mean, Sanos. Indeed, replied Sanos, his voice a thick and heavy baritone. He's had all the necessary tests completed? Sanos asked. Of course, Dr. Blum replied. Good, I'm starved. Dr. Blum bowed. Of course, he said. They stopped in front of the door leading to Ben's chamber. This is it, said Dr. Blum, sliding a panel from the small window. He looked inside, seeing Ben sitting on the floor, his back against the wall. Ben's pupils circled beneath half-closed eyelids. His body jerked. The back of his head smacked against the wall. Said Dr. Blum. See? Much more calm. Delightful, breathed Sanos. May I? Naturally, said Dr. Blum. Sanos commanded perfection in his food. His eyes widened, delighted in observing Ben. Have we done well? Asked Dr. Blum. Sanos licked his lips. Very well indeed. I'll leave you to it then. Dr. Blum stepped away, turning down the hall, but stopped abruptly. Almost forgot. He's the father of the child we secured this morning. Quite potent he is, this being his second child. Sanos' eyes widened. His grin revealed a mouth of razor-sharp teeth. Truly remarkable, he said. Enjoy, Sanos. Dr. Blum continued his retreat down the hall. Sanos gripped the doorknob, entering Ben's chamber with a hurried anticipation. Sanos stretched his arms, his footsteps tapping against the concrete. Ben's chest jumped, his head drifting from one side to the other. Sanos cracked his neck, stretching his chin left and right, standing in the middle of the room. Ben attempted to open his eyes. Who's there? He said, his eyes dripping with tears as his head flopped back to the wall. Sanos' eyes narrowed. Can you not see me? No response other than Ben's shallow breathing. Sanos moved his head and shoulders left and then right, eyeing Ben. His tongue jutted over his lips like a snake in recoil. Ben whispered. His eyes fluttered beneath his eyelids. Sanos clenched his fist. Looked to the right while shaking his head. Disappointed, he snarled and stared at Ben, shouting, Do you not see me? Ben shuddered against the wall as if Sanos' voice had attacked him. But briefly, he returned to his sedated state a moment after. His head swayed gently back and forth. Where's Sandy? Ben said. His head flopped back against the wall. His eyes rolled behind falling eyelids. Sanos stared at Ben, sizing him up, a snarl across his lips. Somewhere, he said, in here with the rest of us, beneath the earth. Ben swallowed his labored breath. I want to see her. Now! He clenched his fists as if to strike, but they fell to his sides like heavy anvils he had no strength to hold. Sanos laughed. Good, Ben, he said. Bring rage to the forefront of consciousness. I enjoy it more when the food is resistant. There's no sport for the submissive animal. Ben's brow furrowed. His right eyelid fluttered as if attempting to see. to see what or who was in front of him. Yes, see me, Ben. I want you to see me. Sanos dipped his shoulders down, leaning his head closer to Ben. Ben forced his eyes open. Sanos could see his reflection in those eyes. Sanos' countenance resembled a cobra. His neck bones swelled with anticipatory feeding, resembling the cobra's trademark hood. Also, a common occurrence prior to a drop feeding, the stretched bones affected the eyes, changing the otherwise elongated emerald pupils into dark pins, as if the soul retreated into darkness. Ben flopped to the floor on his side, limp and futile. Sanos shook his head. Dr. Blum, I'm very disappointed. Look at you, Ben, you can't even see. There's no indulgence in this. Keeping food in cages is all too human. He rolled his eyes, standing stiff and frustrated, releasing a growl from the bottom of his throat. This is what we've come to, he said, making deals with a species clearly primitive to our own. He went to Ben, crouched in front of him. I miss the days, Ben, when we hunted prey on our food, not this wretched, fiendish way of feasting. He tapped Ben's head with a thick finger, sharp at its tip. But I am hungry, Ben. Oh, Ben, I'm so frustrated. I wish for you to be awake, to face with fear, to fight and fight with all your strength and might. He slapped Ben's head. Wake up, he said. No response. Can you hear me, Ben? He slapped Ben again. Can you even hear me at all? Another slap, followed by another and another. Each slap thrown with a stronger force. The last crushing Ben's nose, spewing blood on the floor, and Sanos widened his eyes. I'm so hungry, moaned Sanos, staring at the blood that crawled across the floor. Sanos dipped his finger in, touched the blood to his tongue, and his insides shivered. Eyes wide. Haven't had blood like that before. His lips turned numb. His body quivered as he stretched his neck. The pills in Ben's blood were now coursing through Sanos' veins. He ground his teeth, parting his lips. His body shook, jaw tight, wide eyes filled with rage. He grabbed a handful of Ben's hair, snatching him up and slamming his body against the wall. His teeth tore into Ben's neck, gulping blood. Ripped into Ben's skull, tearing at the bone, ate his ear in one swallow, growling as he tore Ben's windpipe from his neck, which he spit to the floor, then wrapped his lips across the open cavity, bending Ben's head, drinking with fury and indulgence. Sanos snapped his head back. Magnificent, he hollered, holding Ben's body. His tongue lapped across his bloody teeth. His head swayed side to side violently. His whole body shook as he thrust his fist into Ben's chest and tore out his heart. As he took the organ into both hands, Ben's body dropped with a thud. Sanos tore into the heart, devouring the organ, his jaw tight, mouth open wide, as a low roar erupted from his throat, his hands shaking in front of him. He stood, feeling the hypnotic sedation turning his mind into a raging fury, swallowing the moment of pure elation. When he opened his eyes, he had one word on the tip of his tongue. More, he breathed. I need